Hi, welcome to the Average Amputee. My name's Jason, and well, I'm an amputee. Hi, welcome back to the Average Amputee. This is episode 2. So in our first episode, we kind of talked about the introduction of me, and I thought for episode 2, it would be great to talk about post-surgery. So we're going to go through basically the basics, the first few months, how I felt, what kind of things were happening right after surgery, my recovery, and then I have a couple questions that were asked on the Average Amputee Facebook that I'd like to actually address. They're very good questions, and I think a lot of people ask the same things. So right after surgery, I woke up with a pre-fitted leg, which means basically they've put kind of a cast over your stump where you were amputated at to keep everything clean and whatever. And then they have a foot on there so that you can kind of theoretically get up and walk. You know, it's surgery. It's a major surgery. So they're removing a part of your body. You can't expect to wake up and not have pain. In my case, doctor came in. He went to adjust the leg, took 2 of the bolts out and pulled the foot off. And for some reason at that moment, that is when my brain saw the foot removed and registered, and I had a moment of searing, agonizing, horrible, excruciating pain. I mean, I was like screaming and yelling, and it kicked in. That's probably the most pain and the only time I've had that level of pain ever. After that, let's fast forward a little bit because that's, you know, kind of a snapshot in time, one instance. I was not a slow recovery. In fact, I actually asked my mom for some photos of recovery because she's, you know, big on pictures and took a lot when I was younger. But she didn't have any because I recovered so quickly. It was such a fast-paced program. You know, the Shriners Hospital really took care of me, and because I was younger and able to kind of bounce back from it, it was really quick. 4 days, I was up with crutches, kind of moving around and using the foot. A big thing with newly amputees is something we don't understand, or a lot of people don't realize, is your stump is going to change in size drastically for the first year, if not 2 years. I mean, I've been an amputee for forever, and it's still changing. You know, you gain weight, you lose weight. But just after surgery, there's a lot of swelling, and the leg gets decompressed. And so don't expect to have your forever leg right off the bat. As far as the pain levels, I'd say for me, pain was about a 5, maybe. Laying down wasn't a big deal, but when you stand up, you had a lot of the blood rush, and that caused a lot of pressure and throbbing. It took a minute to kind of adjust, and then you were able to go. So it's not horrible, but it can be. I understand that there are different circumstances for different amputees. So you come out of the hospital, you kind of have to adjust, you're using crutches for a while. Right here, sorry. I know it's a little colorful. It was not always like this, but this is an example of what my first leg looked like. It wasn't, you know, a lot of bits and pieces and parts that move. It wasn't an ankle that articulates. It wasn't anything. It's basically a shell, you know, socket here for the stump to go into. I used, I don't know, 3 socks or whatever, and then it's just a hard shell and kind of a rubbery foot. That's it. They don't come like this standard. This is a paint job that someone did for me in high school that still stands, and I'm a huge Blink-182 fan, so I had them sign my leg actually quite a few times. This isn't the only time they've ever signed it. It says, "This is the coolest thing ever, Mark, Blink-182." Anyways, so this is kind of the basic of basic legs. This is what you probably be fitted with first and foremost, just to get used to the socket, and honestly, you don't want to spend the tens of thousands of dollars it costs on a prosthetic leg that's only going to last you a couple months. So this is what they start you out with. I would probably say my first 4 legs looked like this. From there, your first months, you'll start getting used to it. You'll drop the crutches altogether. I was able to walk and kind of be on my own shortly afterwards. There's a difference in time as well. As an adult, you have to deal with adjusting to having not been an amputee for so long versus being a teenage kid you have to adjust less, right? You're used to so many things, so many ways of living your life as an adult. So I was in high school. The biggest thing I had to worry about or had to deal with was bullying. And it sucks. I mean, bullying is a factor of life. You know, I had kids throwing rocks at me while I was walking home on crutches. I've had teachers make comments. I've had people make comments. I've been shoved and pushed and whatever. Other than that, my life has not been drastically different than if I had both of my legs. It actually probably is better, because if I had continued with surgeries and continued with correctives, it would have never ended any other way than it did now, and I would have wasted more time. So first few months, you know, healing, then you get onto walking, then you upgrade prosthetics, which we'll cover in a different episode. I want to kind of have a whole episode about prosthetics to kind of show you the bits and pieces, the parts, the types. There's a lot of differences in what are out there for options and what people expect. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll just move on to questions. So the first question was, how long did it take to come to terms with being an amputee? And how long before I accepted it mentally and was in a good place? So I'm lucky enough to be raised in a very positive environment with my mother. So I don't take too many things too seriously. I made the decision solely. My mother did not tell me, yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't. It was my decision to become an amputee. That's huge. Not a lot of people get that decision. You see a lot of amputees that are amputees because they have to be, or all of a sudden. And that's not up to them. That's up to fate, that's up to life, that's up to the conditions of where they are. So it's got to take longer for those folks to really realize. I've met some very angry amputees in my past. People that just never accepted what they have being life, and they only focused on the fact that they're an amputee and they're not like everyone else. One of the biggest examples, I guess, is when I first got a prosthetic, the newer ones with the bits and pieces and whatever, I wanted it to look real. I didn't want people to see it from afar and go, oh, he's got an amputation, or he's an amputee. So what they used to do is they used to put this coating over the prosthetic, you know, because it's not like the one I showed you. It would be like a pole or whatever, and they put a foam covering, it was skin tone, and it looked real. After a few prosthetics, probably like, I want to say 3 years after I got out of high school, I just said, forget it. I don't care. This looks cooler being a robot leg. I can tell people I'm half, you know, Terminator or something. So the other question I got was about phantom pains. Phantom pains are probably the #1 question I'm asked from everybody. Do you have phantom pains? So if you don't know what a phantom pain is, a phantom pain is basically a pain or a sensation within the limb or part of your body that you're missing. It's not there, right? It's all nerve endings. And so I personally have never had phantom pains per se, up until maybe last year, honestly. I used to have sensations, and that's what I would tell folks. If I was in the woods hiking and my right foot got wet, like in the boot, soggy, you know how wet socks, my left foot would feel like it was wet and soggy. I can wiggle my toes on my left foot. It feels like my big toe's wiggling and all 5 toes are there, and I'm wiggling it. Sometimes I have an itch, go to scratch it, it's not there. So yes, I've had them. Within the last year or so, I've actually been experiencing these weird sharp pains on the bottom of my foot that I don't have. It's all in your circumstance. If you lose a limb based off of an accident, I've heard and I've talked to folks where their phantom pains are much more intense and much more extreme. Luckily, again, I was able to make the decision for myself, so I don't really have that. So if you have any questions at all, like I said, either type them in the chat bar here on YouTube or hit up our Facebook page and start a discussion there. I, of course, don't mind answering questions or concerns. If you know anybody that is going to be an amputee or may have the procedure in the future that maybe they just want to learn a little bit more, have them check out the videos or shoot me a message or whatever you'd like. As always, be well, and we'll see you next time. See ya.